Three.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. First off, I want to say thanks to the EnerGIS planning committee for, being agile and taking care of this conference in a virtual fashion as opposed to on-site. And I understand there's a lot of complexities to that. And again, just thanks for joining and thanks for continuing on with EnerGIS. So today I want to talk about what do you see on the screen, re-examining site selection, specifically for the energy industry. My name's Jeremy Jurick. I'm a GIS program manager with Michael Baker out of the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania office. So let's get started. Kind of an introduction about this. So I want to talk about getting energy to market to kick this concept off. First and foremost, there's some things that you're going to see on the screen that might be obvious, but I think it's good to talk about. Regardless of the source of energy or where it's generated or found, there's an inherent fact as to why we need to get energy sources to market, right? And it's obvious. We are consumers of energy, whether pre-COVID, post-COVID. That fact is not going to change. How much energy we consume may change, but we're always going to be consumers of energy, right? And this will not stop. So whether we're talking fossil fuels, wind farms, solar, whatever that may be, we are going to consume that energy. It needs generated, it needs brought to market. And when it's at market, we're going to consume it through residential, commercial, processing facilities, industries, et cetera, et cetera. And I kind of want to keep that concept in our mind as we walk through these ideas I want to lay out. Okay, processing and manufacturing siting requirements. So this is the bulk of my talk and what I want to propose. Okay, so let's think about this. So traditionally, which as in the past and even currently, if a company is looking to site, we're going to use a processing facility. Maybe petroleum or something of that nature is being brought into a facility and they're creating a product. That's what we're framing here. If a company that does that is looking to site in a specific region, whether it be Western Pennsylvania, Texas, Louisiana, wherever, real estate experts across the board are going to typically ask these two questions. Number one, what's your budget? Okay, company XYZ, how much money are you willing to spend on purchasing property, moving to this area, standing up facilities, infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. And number two, how much building square footage do you need? Do you need 1 million acres or 1 million square feet of space? Are you talking about a gigantic warehouse, or do you need a structure that already exists, that's small commercial building? How many acres do you need? Do you need 2 acres, 10 acres, et cetera, et cetera? And here's what we're seeing. The first response that typically this company is given back is, okay, well, that's fine and dandy, that's great, but here's some brownfields that are in our area. And they're presented with options, first about brownfields. And I have absolutely nothing against brownfields. I think the logic makes sense to present these brownfields. But a lot of times they're not what this company may be looking for, right? So after they wipe the slate and say, you know what, these brownfields are great, but it's not really what we're looking for. The next thing is, okay, here's a list of available properties that are for sale. Here's the MLS listing in a region you're interested in. I set some parameters on pricing. Here's what we got. Here's what represents our region. Here's what's available. Now, unfortunately, there's a lot more that goes into site selection than just these two ideas. And what this company may come away with is they may abandon the search within the region that they're looking at. And unfortunately, what I'm proposing next, and I've heard it happen, is there's a result that is not good for that region. And the result is this. All of a sudden, word of mouth spreads. Hey, this company said that Western Pennsylvania has no sites available, so let's not even waste our time there. Or hey, there might be sites available in Texas, in this Gulf Coast region, but the acreage or something of that nature is not preferable for us, so let's not look there. So I'd like to turn that upside down, right? So it's time to re-examine the siting strategy. So some logical questions come up, and I'm going to propose 3 of them. There's 3 kind of rhetorical questions that I want to talk about. The first one, so this is EnerGIS, GIS. So first off, why is GIS data not used first to better find potential locations, as opposed to GIS being used after potential sites are selected for review? And this comes out of conversations I've been a part of where a land developer may be presented with potential properties, and then the second step is, well, let's look at some GIS data. Let's scour county websites and just look for things to see if this location supports what we want to do. All right. So as we go into the different layers here of this concept, I have 4 or 5 things that I want to talk about regarding using GIS data first and how we should better do that. So number 1, let's use geofencing, which we already do, but let's geofence regions to look for sites, but allow some buffering. So if a company comes in and says, I'm interested in the Ohio Valley, the Ohio River Valley, let's not just say, okay, here's the 10 counties in Pennsylvania that we want to look at, but let's also look at Ohio and West Virginia as an option. Let's ask the size of a site that's needed. We do that already, but let it be scalable. So if a company comes in and they need 15 acres, let's not do a hard cut at that 15. Let's consider sites that might be a little bit larger that would still fit their preference. Number 3, letter C, let's ask if the site needs to be pad ready or can there be slope. We've seen some incredible amount of land be moved in the last couple years to prepare sites. So just because there is a slope on a site, let's not shy away from that. Now there may be companies that need a pad ready location, and that's okay too, but we need to be better equipped to help them find those logical sites. And letter D, so let's take all the things we learned as geography students, especially with site and situation, and not just talk about them, but actually use these to help hone in on sites. Distance from interstate, distance from rail. Is it along a navigable river? Distances from airports. These are just 4 easy examples, but there's more out there. And specifically, let's rank their importance. So if a company comes in and says, I need to be 5 miles from the Pittsburgh airport, for example, I'd be willing to bet 6 miles would work for them too. So let's not do our geographic hard buffers there. Let's think about ranking some things. Okay, you're a little bit outside of where you want to be, so I've ranked this property a little bit lower, but it still fits your need. And the last thing, let's use these known oil, gas, petroleum, etc. GIS data to hone in on sites too. Let's not do this at the end of the process like I've seen previously. Let's do this in the forefront as to not waste people's time to say, well, here's a site, but it's like nowhere near the cracker plant that you want to be located next to. We're just wasting time and giving a bad impression where this company may come away and say there's no sites within the region that meet our criteria. So that's number 1. Another way to re-examine the siting strategy. So why only examine the MLS real estate listings of properties that are for sale, right? Let me expand upon this. Time and time again, working with land development and engineers, we hear of facilities and infrastructure that are sited on properties that were not originally listed on the MLS listing. So as a real estate agent, commercial, they may just give you the list of, okay, let's go through the MLS and find what best meets your criteria. Over and over, we hear about boots on the ground, knowledge, local knowledge paying off, where you may find a property owner that's in the back of their mind looking to sell or willing to sell, but it may not be a listed property. And a lot of asterisks and quotes around this, because this could come off the wrong way, but this idea that all land is available for a price. Now, obviously there's some land that is not just readily available. Government property, national forest, Pennsylvania Game Commission land. I have seen land swaps occur. That does happen. But I'm getting back to this concept that just because someone owns a piece of property and it's not on the MLS listing, doesn't mean it may not be available, right? So we need to think about that a little better when we're locating facilities. And number 3, so why only search one property at a time, one by one, when a combination of properties could meet the need of a developer? So let's expand upon this thought. Okay, in the example I'm going to look at here, we see 3 properties, right? If a company comes in and says, I need 50 acres, let's say, for example, the property on the right-hand side that's large is 40 acres, and the other 2 properties are each 5 acres. Combined, these properties meet that siting requirement. But if we just do a simple GIS query or look through the real estate listings, we're going to say, well, we're sorry, nothing meets your criteria. There's no sites available, which is inherently not true. Combining these sites, combining these parcels together, they all meet the essential requirement, and combined, that site is fulfilled, that size is fulfilled. All right, okay, so I want to do a little case example here. I live about a mile away from where Shell is standing up their ethane cracker plant in Beaver County. And to expound upon this concept of not searching property by property, let's look at their footprint now. So Shell's footprint, this is the property they own around the cracker plant to date right now in 2020. This is about 1,200 acres, right? So if we look back prior to Shell coming in and buying any property, here are the different landowners and pieces of property that exist where they are now. So if they would come in and say, I need 1,200 acres, and you ran a query, you'd only come back in Beaver County specifically with one property in Beaver County that has about 1,200 acres, and I think that's Raccoon Creek State Forest. And obviously that's not going to meet their requirement. But here, with this process of combining properties to come up with that site that meets their requirement, you can see how there's probably 15 to 20 different landowners here that combined, this property ended up being perfect for the situation at hand. Okay, so we've taken these concepts the last couple years that we're hearing about and wanted to come up with a way using GIS to help dispel this myth about those sites being available in a certain area. We want to at least give better options. So we've come up with this concept that we're calling site locator, but essentially it's everything I just talked about kind of flipped upside down, right? Flipping this way of looking at site selection upside down and differently. So we've come up with a pretty simple process that we're working on, right? First, what are the requirements? And especially regarding site and situation. What are your requirements? I don't want to talk about money yet. We just want to know, like, what would fulfill your requirements? Distance from rail. Do you need rail on your property, or can you be within 3 miles of it? You know, what are your requirements? Put that into a GIS cement mixer, some algorithms, scripting, applications, and within about a minute, I'll come the top 20 sites within a region that meet that criteria, right? The reason we did this, we heard over and over that land developers and different brokerages and companies scour GIS websites, county websites, just looking and hoping they're going to come across the right property, then put boots on the ground and come to find out it's not a logical site anyway. With this, we thought, let's take the time out of it. What takes 40 hours, let's make it work in 2 minutes. And then also open the hood for that GIS data up front. Okay, so we need water and sewer. Okay, let's make sure that this property has the correct water and sewer infrastructure that's needed. Don't suggest properties that don't have it. Okay, and why is this solution unique? We actually filed a patent on some of this stuff in early September of 2020. And why is it unique? This ability to stitch land tracts together to meet a requirement, I think this is unique. We haven't really seen this out there. GIS analysts can do this and should do this, but we thought let's make it easier to automate this process, right? Number two, it doesn't just give you a result of the MLS real estate listings. It actually proposes some sites that are not for sale, but potentially may be once boots are on the ground and there's an investigation that occurs. And last, utilizes the latest in GIS data sets to find potential sites and not just doing our traditional buffering and overlaying, but coming up with a ranking system that's dynamic, where the user that submits this query can have a say in how that ranking works. Okay, for example, being located next to an international pipeline, it doesn't matter to me. So I'm putting no confidence in that, no weight in that. But having a site that's pad ready with 0 to 5% slope, that's what I want. So let's rank that much higher. So we can throw that into that cement mixer I was talking about, and out comes, for example, the top 20 sites. So that's the concept we're working on now. If you have any questions about this or some of the thoughts about ways to re-examine how we do site selection, I'd be definitely interested in talking about it. Also with the nature of COVID, I'm hearing the term, I heard it today, site deselection. So with site deselection, if there's folks that are going to be, or companies that are going to be getting rid of those brick and mortar buildings and trying to offload properties, I bet you a lot of those are not listed yet. And with this concept, it just keeps evolving and has application. So thank you for your time. And I'll put this last screen up. Feel free to get a hold of me if you want to talk about re-examining site selection. Appreciate your time.